All right, guys, so we have a super interesting video today. So apparently during an investor presentation earlier today, Ubisoft showcased a new R&D first-person shooter called Teammates. The idea is not to create this game, but to use it as, like I said, an R&D sort of experiment with player-inputted voice commands talking to AI-controlled NPCs. And I've got two separate articles. One's more of a overall general talk about the showcasing, and another is more in-depth hands-on preview of what they experienced while playing the game Teammates, which is very, very interesting. I've got a couple snippets from that second article, but from the first one is from GameSpot. Ubisoft shows off generative AI game demo called Teammates. During the presentation, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot also described the advent of generative AI in games as a revolution. A lot of what has been spun in these two articles is talking how AI doesn't take over, but if implemented correctly, gives you very interesting experiences. And based on what the preview article showcased, I thought it was actually kind of fascinating. And I want to go through some bits and pieces there that I think were actually very interesting use cases for AI. And I would say it doesn't go down the alley of fears that people have, people losing their jobs, AI slop, and all that stuff. It doesn't go down that alley of negative AI perspective, and more towards what I've been thinking about, which is, if used correctly, very, very immersive gameplay experiences. So we got a quote from this first article on GameSpot. Generative AI is as big a revolution for games as the shift to 3D, says Guillermo during the presentation. We're making great strides in applying generative AI to high-value use cases that bring tangible benefits to our players and teams. It's as big of a revolution for our industry as the shift to 3D. And we have everything to lead on this front. So that is a very, very interesting point that he's trying to make there. Like, this is a big shift from 2D to 3D. So I'm here for it. I'm very curious as to how far we can actually push this this generative AI asset to its limitations that do exactly that. So he's putting his foot down. You know, he's whipping it out. So I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Generative AI driven gameplay can shape a new generation of more interactive and engaging games. Well, based off the second article, and we'll take a look at that in a second, I don't think there's anything else here. Yeah. So from the game's narrative direction, the game Teammates, their narrative director Virginie Moser, I don't know how you pronounce your first name, I apologize. Our role is to give AI meaning, to narrativize it, ensuring logic doesn't replace soul. We design Teammates to leave space for player creativity, finding that balance between emotion and unpredictability. So again, experiment in the works, but nonetheless what they showcase is very, very interesting. So let's go and hop over to the second article that we pulled up from Video Game Chronicles. Essentially what you can do, and this is what I got from it's a huge article, so I will link both in the description down below. You guys can read the second one from Video Game Chronicles, because I was gonna say, who is the writer? Chris Scullion. Apologize if I pronounce your last name incorrectly, but he actually had hands-on experience with this, and you go through his experience detailed throughout this article, and it's really, really good. But I got a couple snippets. Now, one thing I thought that was super, super interesting, because you've got this NPC called Jasper, and they're like I think a narrative NPC that you could just communicate with your microphone while you're playing the game. And you could do something as simple, and this is fascinating, that I didn't really think of, but he straight up asked Jasper, and in the article, not to be confused with Jarvis, which is kind of funny, but he said, Jasper, I usually play with y-axis inverted on the right stick. Can you sort that? And just like that, my right stick was inverted. I decided to see how this could work for accessibility. Jasper, I'm colorblind. He lied. Can you change the display to account for this? And then Jasper asked what type of color blindness, and he gave all the ones that I can't pronounce. He said the third one, and the game's graphics change accordingly. Now, this is actually very, very fascinating. Instead of having to sift through just menus on menus on menus of stuff, especially with the options and the settings, you could quite literally, and you can implement this not just in this use case, but for all games out there, to have some sort of AI voice recognition software. It doesn't even have to be an NPC that talks back to you, but you just click a button and you just talk to it, be like, okay, I want my sensitivity to be like this. I want my controls to be like this. Can we remap this? Can you point me in the direction for this? Instead of having to go through a bunch of menus. Now, depending on the game, menu navigation isn't the biggest pain in the world. So there's no problem there. But sometimes I've been through plenty of games where I'm just sifting through them and I wish there was some sort of menu or some sort of search bar that I can find the specific one that I'm looking for, and then boom, we're good to go. So that bit I think is actually kind of cool. You can actually have verbal communication with the built-in AI, the built-in settings manager, and just tell it to go do a thing instead of you sifting through it. So cool. Might be a little bit too much in terms of like implementation, and you know, I know some people are just be like, you're just being lazy at that point, but also I can get down with that. I think that's actually kind of an interesting thing to bring up, or a thing to actually implement depending on the game especially. So super cool. What else did I find? Okay, so throughout the game, you're communicating with this NPC called Jasper, who is like the overarching narrative character, but you also have two robots, essentially, Sophia and Pablo. And this actually is very reminiscent of an old, I can't remember, it was a Tom Clancy, like, maybe not a Ghost Recon, but it was an early, like, I'm talking late 90s, early 2000s, early Tom Clancy game, where it did kind of have very bad but also doable voice input commands that you can give to the NPCs. Your voice had to be super clear, because the technology was definitely not there, and you had to use the correct command, because if you didn't, then it would not register. It had to be word for word, verbatim, what it wanted, and you had to speak it clearly through the microphone. I remember me and my friend were playing this game, and seriously, this was like late 90s. I cannot for the life of me remember this game, and I don't recall if it was maybe a Tom Clancy or a different kind of game, but nonetheless, this idea, or even the early Hey You Pikachu, like early games that had microphone inputs to get them to do a thing. Nowadays, especially with generative AI, can definitely take up word commands, I would say, significantly better, especially our quality of microphones have significantly gotten better, and you can have them do so many different things that the AI can very much interpret in a bunch of different ways. And I think this is actually a huge thing from AI that could go super hard. So then you'll have, you know, the rails that are in a normal game, the hallways, the sort of constrained, locked-in gameplay loop that you're tied to, now widens exponentially depending on the player and their ability to communicate and have very creative ways to approach a scenario in a first-person shooter like this. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this kind of opened my mind a little bit and thinking, oh no, there's actually potential here, especially for a game like this, maybe a single-player sort of game where it's you and a bunch of bots and you're completing missions. And the creativity has been expanded upon significantly in that video game to where it's now more locked to the agency of the player and less so on the developers for giving the player a bunch of tools on how to approach a situation. In a like Ghost Recon Tom Clancy sort of idea, this could go super hard. Giving your team just a broad reach of control to whatever the scenario is, and you don't have to go through a bunch of D-pad menus or whatever to select, hey, you go here, you have to ping them up here. It's like, no, you can verbally tell them and they'll get it for the most part. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this actually got me kind of interested, kind of excited. So there, and again, this is R&D, it's all being built on, but I could definitely see the potential for this. So that's another snippet. Let me see if I can find another one. So another huge issue that a lot of people have had is with AI taking over jobs, writers, or voice actors and stuff like that. One bit that they pointed out, the narrative director, Virginie Moser, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your first name. As a writer for many years of experience as an author, screenwriter, and comic book writer, she told the author of the article that when she was asked to get involved with this project, she was extremely apprehensive at first because of the obvious concern that AI could eventually replace the writing process entirely. Instead, she told the author she realized that she still had an important role to play in defining each character and other elements of the game, such as the plot and the other structural elements which are put in place to make sure the player still has a path to follow. For Sophia and Pablo, she had to create a detailed character sheet, right? Similar to one that would be created for a Dungeons and Dragons type character, explaining their backstory, their personality, their likes and dislikes. She then wrote many hundreds of lines of dialogue for that character in order to build a more detailed model of who they are and how they react to certain situations. So you cannot just put a AI NPC into the game and expect it to just become something. There's still so much work that has to go into to really build this NPC from the ground up to give it exactly that, a Dungeons and Dragons type sheet for the character. You know what I mean? So you have to give it a backstory. You have to give it a personality. And that's going to take iteration upon iteration to really hone in what kind of character you're trying to create. And that's got to go from, nothing to completion. Probably even a little help from the AI as it progresses, almost like it's writing itself. Imagine. Or even pulling from inspiration. All depends. But there's still so much work that has to go into the ecosystem of the game itself from the writers and whatever, and also from the voice actors, I would imagine. I think it also went into voice actor bits for a little bit, but not too much, where again, it's not as if these things are just going to take over. Like one person can create a Witcher 3 type game, super detailed, filled with everything, and it's all just AI generated. I don't think that'll ever be the case. I mean, it could be, but it'd be AI slop and we all would notice it and probably hate it. But so much more creation has to be added to a game like that in order for it to take hold, in order for it to be finished. You know what I mean? So much work goes in. And again, having something like this, as it starts to progress towards a finished product, it would take, I would say, less people than it traditionally would now. But again, we're talking, 50 to 100 AA, AAA, quote unquote, studios making these games. Whereas more people are going to branch out and make other companies, and we're going to have a couple hundred AA, AAA studios. Those numbers may not be correct, but nonetheless, having less people work on a project just means more people are going to set up more studios to make more projects and just expand out that way. No one has to be locked in. Not everyone needs to work for Ubisoft, Sony, Microsoft, so on and so forth. So it's like you're not going to lose jobs, but so many more people are going to have better tools to program these games. And I think it's just going to be the tide that raises all ships at this point. But not losing your job, so much more can go into it, and you're still building characters with backstory and writing and all that stuff. So really, really good to hear. Again, still like that. That's pretty good. And then what was this bit? So another issue that they brought up in the article that makes a lot of sense is that once you start communicating with these AI people, you're going to have people that are going to be saying very outlandish things to see if they can get a reaction from the AI. They made a good point that when we had 3D open world games like Grand Theft Auto, where you can just run amok, shoot, run over people, all that stuff, that started to lose its appeal after a certain amount of time. It's like, I can run all these people up, or okay, I'm overdoing that. Let's actually play the game now. You're going to have people do that with the AI, but eventually it's going to start, losing its points, and then you're going to start going with them to actually perform the story and all that stuff. They pointed out pretty much in a way better way than I did. It's like when you start having the first games where you can run over pedestrians, when you start to have a game design system which tells you that doing this doesn't bring you any value, any points, I think in the near future, meaning next year, players will start to get used to talk. And of course, at first you want to test it, but then what you want is to be connected to the world itself. You start to lose that sort of appeal of freedom with it, and you start locking in and actually playing the game itself. So the funny out of the bounds stuff starts to be reduced because you don't have a game design system giving you points for that. So it's a smarter way of saying, we have the no, but we believe that first we want to bring them back to is this is not giving you any XP points. I think that's a good way to put it. You doing whatever or saying whatever to the AI is eventually just going to be like, nothing is progressing. You're kind of just wasting your time. This is giving you nothing in return. So either quit or keep going, because you're just talking to a void at this point. It's AI. It's not going to do anything for you. And you're just never going to move on up until you do move on. So I can see it from that perspective. It's a new, fun interaction that we can have in these games, much like we did with 3D games. And eventually you're going to get bored of it, move on, and go do the actual game. So sounds good. Sounds absolutely good. And then finally, towards the end of the article, let me see what this one was about. Oh, right. So eventually, what's going to happen to the overall ecosystem once these AI games starts coming in and they're using them in the correct direction, at least with this article and this what this test demo is outlining, is that you're going to have new, essentially, genres of games. And, they pointed out a few times throughout this article, especially in a game like Baldur's Gate 3, Dungeons & Dragons, if you can actually voice talk AI with all the NPCs, bro, you're going to lose yourself real quick. But, for example, one of the angles that was mentioned is using it as an accessibility element. A game designer could say, that's only what I want. I'm doing my own thing, but I love this AI companion for accessibility reasons, and then that's not really changing anything. Or they'll go all in and they'll have super dynamic characters, and then it's like a new genre. It could be a spin-off of an RPG plus AI, or AI RPG. I feel like AI being the prefix to all these genre types might be the way to look at it. So, or FPS plus AI, or an AI FPS, driving AI, who knows? And all that I think is eventually going to, And all of that I think is eventually going to branch to do things differently, because we can really do things we can never do before, which is what we can account for absolutely every single player input, and we'll have a response from the game. So, I don't know. Reading through this article really gave me, I think, a little bit of hope that we're not going to go down, like I was saying before, that bad alley of bad AI slop and dumb iterations of AI in games, or unethical and unreasonable iterations of AI, and do a little bit. And again, this is all experimental with this this teammates demo, but it looks like it's going in the right direction for good iterative versions of AI plus video games. So it looks good. Again, read through this article, check it out. I think it's interesting. I don't recall if there's any other pieces of information from this, unless we could eventually get access to this demo, maybe at some time in the future. Again, it would be really, really interesting to actually give this a shot, to actually give verbal commands. And be sure to let me know down in the comments if there's already games like that are pretty good to that point. If you've got, maybe not AI, but something akin to it. I know there's plenty of voice input games out there, like the ones I mentioned way back in the day, Nintendo 64 back in the day with the Hey You Pikachu. But with AI implemented in a game like this sort of first-person tactical shooter, this could get super, super in-depth. It could be very, very immersive, I think, once you start allowing not only your player to play, like you're not just an out-of-body camera just giving commands and just not doing anything, but you're also a part of it, so you can tell the AI, like you would tell a friend or whatever, like an actual person, hey, go around here, flank, and do all that stuff, and they will actually do it. Like, that part sounds significantly appealing to me. And then, again, this applied to other types of games out there, genre games, RPGs, shooters, driving games, whatever, like they were outlining, I think can go super, super hard. But yeah, take a look at this article, read it, and see if you guys got a similar opinion like mine or a completely different one. Maybe this is the wrong direction you want it to go. Maybe you're just anti-AI altogether. Totally feel it. But nonetheless, I thought this was very, very interesting. And again, if we can get access to something like this sometime in the future, I would 100% be down to try it out. It would be a little terrifying, I will say, after, playing games for so long. Actually having an NPC kind of talk back to me, and we're going to have to test like how much range it's going to have. Again, it could be something very akin to Westworld, where once you start introducing things that are very outside the scope of its programmed character sheet, it's probably going to give you some sort of output of be like, let's lock into the game and not go in that direction. What is that? I don't know what that is. It looks like nothing to me. it could very much go exactly in that direction, and I totally feel it. It's like these characters are built for this game, so they're going to be locked into that game. You can't really bring in other things and be like, weird. But better interaction with these NPCs with verbal communication would be so fascinating, especially a game like The Witcher, Witcher 3, Skyrim, those sort of open world RPGs where you're doing nothing but interacting with NPCs. If you can verbally talk to them too, dude, like this could be wild. This could be super, super wild. So yeah, be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and be sure to check out this article. It's actually really, really good. So with that, dudes, that's going to be it for today's video, and that's going to be it for the week. I'm not going to be live tomorrow. I've actually got a wedding to go to, and then I'm not going to be I'm not going to be posting videos all of next week. We're going to be off for Thanksgiving break. I've got no work next week, so it's going to be a good break. It's going to be a solid break. So let me take a look at the schedule, the calendar real quick. Yeah, all of next week. I don't recall if we're doing anything on the 29th, that Saturday, so stream probably then. And then, of course, if there's nothing going on in any particular day and I've got all the time in the world, I might hop on stream and we'll play something. But just assume, yeah, today's going to be the last day for any content up until the first week of December. December 1st is on a Monday, and that'll probably be the very next video and piece of content as far as I know. So with that, dudes, you guys have a good week. If you guys do not celebrate Thanksgiving, all good. You know, to have some sort of turkey somewhere, I don't know, celebrate, have fun, be thankful for your family, be thankful for all the things in your life. It is a good, solid time. So with that, dudes, I'm out of here. You guys have a good rest of your day. Have a good week. I will see you guys in December. Until then, I will see you guys later.